Hi everyone, welcome to the Charlene Show, a talk which talks about taboos, social, cultural, lifestyle, and human interest stories. My name is Charlene. We are doing a 16 days of activism against gender-based violence special, and today in studio I'm joined by Tinashe Makoni, who is a public prosecutor and passionate about women's rights. As we continue turning the world orange, we continue discussing gender-based violence. Tinashe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Charlene.
My pleasure. You are a public prosecutor, and the first question our viewers would probably want to know is which human rights are infringed when someone experiences gender-based violence?
Okay, so when an act of gender-based violence occurs, there's a lot at stake. So you'd find that a number of human rights that are entrenched in our own constitution are violated or infringed. And these are quite a handful, and they include the right to human dignity, is provided in the constitution, the right to life, the right to equality and non-discrimination before the law, amongst other rights.
Thank you, Tinashe. So, what is the legislation in Zimbabwe which criminalizes gender-based violence?
All right, so we have got the Domestic Violence Act. I would say that's the main piece of legislation that deals with gender-based violence. We have the Criminal Law and Codification and Reform Act. We have the Constitution itself, which is the highest law of the land. We've got the Children's Act, which defines what a child is and gives us the rights that the children are entitled to. We've got the Termination of Pregnancies Act. This one specifically protects victims of sexual violence, and it enables them to terminate their pregnancies lawfully. We have got the Domestic Violence Act. This is probably the most important piece of legislation when it comes to gender-based violence.
Thank you so much, Tinashe. So, what now is the legal support that is available for victims of gender-based violence with regards to these acts that you've just mentioned?
All right, so victims of gender-based violence can seek remedies from various platforms. Firstly, we actually do have organizations in the country that give support to victims of violence. We've got organizations such as FACTS, we have got Zwala. These people actually, they actually provide counseling, free legal services, or free legal advice, actually. They also help victims prepare court documents, and they also monitor the court process with the victims. They also advise victims on how to approach the courts for relevant relief. That is the criminal court as well as the civil court. So when they approach the civil court, they are looking at remedies such as court orders most of the time. So this is the kind of relief or remedies or solutions that victims of gender-based violence have in Zimbabwe when it comes to the legal process or the legal procedures.
Okay, so can you take us through the journey from the point when someone reports gender-based violence up to the point when the matter goes into court?
Okay, so when someone is assaulted or violated on the grounds of their gender, which is basically gender-based violence, first of all, before they even report the matter, especially when somebody is sexually assaulted, they have to seek medical attention. That is, they have to approach probably state hospitals. So when they do this, the reason for doing this is actually that they have to be assessed by medical practitioners on the extent probably of harm, or to actually give the court proof that this person was actually assaulted sexually or physically by person A, B, or C. So when they actually approach the medical experts, they get affidavits most of the time. These affidavits will provide information as to the degree or the nature of wounds sustained by the victim. So when one does this, the next step would be to approach the relevant or the nearest police station. Normally one has to approach the victim-friendly unit because those people are actually trained to assist victims of violence. So before I proceed, I just want to mention that everybody is welcome to make a report to the police, be it a female or a male. Because most of the times we might assume that gender-based violence is mainly inclined towards women, which is not the case. So when one goes to the police station, and the police actually here are satisfied that we have a case, or there's reasonable suspicion that we have a case, they open a docket. So what happens is they have to gather evidence, they have to interview the complainant or the victim or the witnesses, they have to record statements, and they have to approach the criminal court. They approach the criminal court and not the civil court because they are pursuing this criminal route. So when they approach the court, that's when the trial has to commence.
Okay. And what happens when a victim withdraws the charges?
Okay. So since this is a state case, there's an option for withdrawing charges. But as I've said, it's a state case. So the victim or the complainant has to withdraw the charges willingly. So the state has to use discretion on whether we should proceed for trial or we should just withdraw the matter before the court.
And how many times should a victim withdraw?
Okay, a victim has the option of withdrawing the matter at the police station.
How many times?
There's no specific number of times. Well, when it comes to the court, it depends with whether the victim has withdrawn the matter before or after plea. So when one withdraws a matter after plea in court, then the matter is complete. The perpetrator is acquitted and the case is closed. But when one withdraws before plea and decides later on that maybe no, let me pursue this matter once again, there's nothing wrong with that. The accused person is issued with summons and they are asked to come back to court and the trial has to commence if it hadn't commenced, or it is forced to continue.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and what if a victim starts contemplating divorce? How do they go about it?
Okay, well, yes, there comes a time when a person says enough is enough. So, depending on the nature of the marriage, one may approach the relevant court, depending on the nature of the marriage or the amount that is at stake, that is the assets that have to be distributed upon the divorce decrees issued by the court. So if your marriage is that of a civil union or the civil route, that is chapter 511, one has to approach the high court. And the court has to take into consideration the valid or recognized grounds that a court may take into consideration to issue a decree of divorce. So the two valid grounds of divorce are: one, the court has to be satisfied that the marriage is irretrievably broken down. Or the second ground is that there is an incurable mental illness or continuous unconsciousness. So these are the two valid or recognized grounds which a court has to take into consideration before it grants a decree of divorce. But if a person is married under customary law, which is unregistered, which they call the uklu, they don't have to approach the court. They have to do it customarily. That is, they have to issue what they call a gupuro.
So there are two grounds of divorce.
Yes.
And if someone is a victim of gender-based violence, does the first ground, so there are two grounds of divorce. Does the first ground also, does gender-based violence come under the first ground?
Yes, it does. Well, the first ground, when we say the marriage is irretrievably broken down, it's like an umbrella term. There are a lot of factors that come in before a court is satisfied that this ground has been met. So these factors also include that the person has been treated cruelly during the course of the marriage. It takes into consideration things like adultery, or maybe a person has been convicted of an offense and has been sent to prison for probably 15 years. Yes, so this only means that this marriage has broken down, and there are no prospects of getting these two people back together.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I understand stalking is another form of gender-based violence.
Yes, it is. The Domestic Violence Act, Section 3, actually confirms that stalking is an offense under the Act. So you'd find that stalking is both a criminal offense and it can also be pursued the civil route. So it's stalking in the sense that it's a form of harassment. And since the Act provides that it's an offense, one can approach the criminal court for relief. Also, stalking, when one decides to use the civil route, you'd find that they may approach the court for what they call an order. The court may issue a protection order or a peace order. Those are the remedies that one can get after applying to the relevant court for protection after experiencing such an offense as stalking.
Thank you so much, Tinashe. We have really learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers now know the steps and procedures that they can take if they are victims of gender-based violence. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, yes. Well, let's put aside the legal aspect of gender-based violence. I would just like to add that victims don't have to be quiet. Anybody can be a victim. There are remedies that are provided by our courts. There are counselors. Just talk to someone. Don't keep the frustration. Don't keep your feelings to yourself. Just go out there. There are people that are willing to help. There are a lot of organizations. It's unfortunate that our society is a patriarchal society. So we would find that even some men who approach the court, they believe that is their right to beat up women or children or exercise their power or masculinity on women. So I just want to appeal to women out there, or even men that are facing abuse, that the legal profession is willing to help you. The legal profession at large, the courts are there. Approach the courts and you'll be helped.
Thank you so much. That was Tinashe Makoni, a public prosecutor at the Magistrates Court. And as you heard, her takeaway, you don't have to keep quiet. You don't have to be silent. Speak out. If you are a victim of gender-based violence, speak out. The criminal justice system is available and ready to help anyone who is in need. Until next time, goodbye.